So moving on to our next presenter, Rhetta Jacobson. What a lady. She's Southern born in Arkansas. She is owner and publisher of Energy Unlimited, which is a publication on Vortex mechanics. Her and Walter Baumgartner were married for a time, and they did actually create many devices, many of which had been employed by governments and various other institutions around the world. She'll speak on some of that, and as well, she graduated from attended the University of Southern Mississippi in Maine, studied at University of Southern Mississippi and as well biology and chemistry. Later in life, she was a librarian in New Mexico and Oregon, and she has been a Russell student for 50 years. She is a veteran of Vortex cosmology research. Many, many things accomplished under her and Walter Baumgartner's spearheading new technologies to face and help eliminate problems that we face through, as Alan said, an incorrect understanding of universal dynamics. But please help me in welcoming Rhetta Jacobson to the stage. Rhetta.
Organized. Hello. Good morning. It's been such a joy to see that we're all saying the same thing. Have you noticed that? We like the same slides. We've come upon the same one attitude. No matter which branch of science or art or music we've come from, we seem to be educators. We're coming together to figure out how to spread this out to the world. Now we're given the opportunity. Internet's all over. Communication is available. Instant communication. We've got group concentration efforts, say crime fighting with the crowd, saving the people, rescuing people by using the social media that's available today. So we should take advantage of it. This is the time. I don't know about timing. I've had some people tell me that humanity wasn't ready, that we just couldn't accept certain things, and the government should keep them secret because we were just so fragile that we just couldn't quite handle it. Well, now we demand to know, and this is a good thing because that same demand, we're causing ourselves to look for truth, look at truth. It's growing. I think it's growing. I see it growing in our young people. I've been with education for years. We had our library programs always had children's summer reading programs, and we had to entertain them. We had to find activities for them to participate together in. So observing that in the last 35 years, there's hope. Our children are born with the consciousness and the knowledge that we actually acquired. They're given our group mind when they come in under this dome. They came in and they have that much imprint upon them by the time they get here, manifesting as a sponge, as an open platform, ready to absorb. I need growth. I want growth. I want to grow my ideas. They are ready. And they come in with the knowledge that was gathered and put together somehow in the background of thinking mind. So there's a few attempts now to try to educate children. And there's a couple of kindergarten physics writers that are working to produce something simple to explain what Russell was trying to show us. Now, if your children are your students, and I think we're all still children, I think we're all still kindergarten people in the sandbox. I think each of us should be considered that way in our understanding compared to what Russell and Leo presented. It's like this. We're little bitty knee knockers. Oh, let's play with this one. But that's our joy. That's our gift, free. Now, if your students are good readers, they can take advantage of all the accumulated knowledge, and Russell was one of the best to record his experience in art. Look at all the forms and all the drawings that he did so that we could see, so that he could share, so that we could have an instant remembering. Now, if your child can look at the books and look at Russell's stuff and absorb like that, you might not have to say much. Just put his art in front of them and tell them things such as this, that we are a creating universe, that it is being made by God's thinking now. There are certain rigid laws, which are laws of love. They're orderly, they're periodicities. They're meant to be helpful, not punishing. But if you are ignorant of those laws, gravity, for instance, which is misinterpreted, as we know, and we misuse it, we're going to fall. If we get out of balance in our extension with our seesaw, show the children the seesaw, the fulcrum, the balance. And if somebody did this before, if you get out of balance and you are too greedy on one side and you can't seesaw anymore, the other side is cheated, the fulcrum is still there. It's the stillness. But we had the choice of pulling that seesaw to one side or the other. And those opposite sides are what we can learn to work with. Neither one of them is a problem. Neither one of them is really difficult. And each of the dimensions have two opposite sides. This little work that I'm showing some of the pictures of is basically to introduce the 18 dimensions to children. Start using the words that Russell used early. And I can show you what we're going to do to help point it out. As you have the children together in a group, have them share their thoughts with each other. Be reflection boards to each other. Alter your thought just slightly by reflecting true on your best friend. Your light together, put together with children, it'll grow. If you surround a child with this type of image, or some of Russell's other wave pictures, cubes and spheres, just leave it on the wall. Just leave it up there for days, or let it be in their bedroom as a child. They will look at that, they will ponder and wonder and relate in their cellular level to the true geometry that they're looking at. That will help them to have cellular memory in their water, in their fluids, in their blood. It was recorded at one time. It is in there. Perfection is in there. We're getting confused, swirling around in the cone of the manifestation. And science is saying, oh, I got it now, I understand now. Well, they're over here in the left quadrant somewhere observing some little piece of it, but Russell put together some spine of explanation of creation from the unseen to the seen, gave us warning that we are only a small part of the spectrum in our senses. There's a whole 360 degrees of other spectrum things going on. They have different frequencies, they have different wavelengths. We're barely familiar with the blue and the reddish ends. And a man named Philip Callahan did some work on that, on frequencies. He was a radar specialist in the Second World War in Scotland and Ireland. And he started noticing the round towers that the agricultural people, the ancients, built there. Besides Stonehenge, there's these other round towers. They're of different dimensions, and they have inlets at different places. And the ancients, which were so ignorant, had found out and measured astronomically the frequencies of growth and they were amplifying them in these towers. And it's a physical, geometric thing of collecting and guiding the force. They knew how to do that. And so Callahan started studying insect antennae and different wavelengths, and he explored things like all over the world. He went all over the world, and he explored dielectrics, biomagnetism, in his study. And he came across a man in South America, for instance, that knew how to make a tine of geometric shape, a certain spiral, and put it on his tiller. And if you drug this through the soil, it gave off a wavelength that would keep weed seeds from propagating. And other experiments like that. These are frequencies that we can learn to work with. We are learning to work with. One of the things that we introduced for sure with children, we had in our home always a funnel, a cone, a sphere, a cube. We actually went so far as to realize that each of these has a different frequency. And there was a couple called Gail and Greg Hogue out of Colorado, and some people are still doing this. They were building these geometric forms big enough for you to get inside of, sleep under, meditate in. So we did that as a group, 6 little children. We had them some of the polyplastic cubes and triangles, and we were trying to demonstrate just one principle of how that cube could become a sphere. What advantages there were as it was becoming a sphere, as it was coming from a static wall, a solid wall, to a spinning circle. There's advantages to that. And to give the child a physical idea of what that's like, they need to spin. They need to dance. Have you ever noticed children love just getting dizzy? They just make themselves sick, fall down dizzy. They want to go out. They want to go out in that spin. They want to experience what that spin could show them. Woo, woo, woo. It's a real thing, and children are discouraged from doing that, but we encouraged it. We did the opposite. So we put ourselves inside a cube that was on a point. You stand in it. Big. And you look at the Russell drawing where he has all of the charges on the corners of the cube. He has radar principle. He has reflection in the center where that luminosity can occur. He has diagonals of resistance. And we align to those things mentally and physically. And we tapped into that energy in our body, where it comes into our body. You've heard of chakras. They come in and it's been mapped. There's 7 and they go up the body. Well, that was one of my studies to have an illumination. I caused myself to have that. I raised the kundalini. They talk about it. I forced it. I wanted to know what Russell knew. Well, I paid some price for it. I almost burned my kidneys out trying to do that. But the whole idea was to show the children that we are connected, that this unseen, whirling action of the wave, we're in it. We're all in it together, and it has certain rules of love that are meant to help us to enjoy the discovery of it. That's all. You know? And it's fun, and it's beautiful, and we love doing it. So to instill curiosity. Another thing we did was we put the cubes, and these had extensions of 6 inches you could take out, and we could chop off the corners of that cube by rearranging the crystal pattern on the corner. And during that process, we're talking about How does crystallization occur? What's happening in that radar corner right there? What's the echo? What's the extension? What is the proportionality? Where do lenses come in? As this force is coming from over there and you're bringing it in, and this one's coming from over there and they cross over each other and the lenses happen, what do you feel? Can you extend that lens? So the children learned, yes, I know people today who can control the temperature of that corner of the room, like a cold spot right here. They have learned to use their own creative power, their command of their environment. They don't know what to do with it a lot of times. There's some people working with light frequencies. They are doing miraculous work. The unfortunate part of the science community, they don't always give Walter Russell credit. They are discovering new parts of the hydrogen, but they don't always give it credit to Russell, Anyway, so we put the kids inside this cube and we chopped off the corners, had them rearrange it, and then we would have them move it. But now let's roll. Now let's be a sphere. Let's be a bubble. It's a lot easier to motivate, isn't it? To move, to spin, to spin. But how do you keep control on that? You got to have an axis. So you learn how to balance yourself. And physically doing this and talking about that with idea that we are creating from stillness of the cathode to maximum potential and action. Turning, being the cathode again, extension in the cube. These are real practices. Now the cube and the drawings of Russell always have the two vortices coming together to make the waves at the amplitude. And our study of 30 years was how to engineer with the principles of the vortex, vortexing mechanics. These things have layers of potential. They have different pressure layers. They have different centripetal forces. They have eddies and whirlpools that can be tapped and harnessed and used, and that's what we were doing. We have about 15 different devices that are presented at the Tesla conference, and it's a follow-up on the video that's on the philosophy.org website under related works, I think, videos. And we took what was then on paper, and we did it. We actually did it because we think we need to know, where does this mechanics fit into our life? Exactly right here, right now. What's the advantage of having this Russell knowledge? How can we help ourselves live in harmony with our planet? Live in harmony with the laws of our universe. We will live so much better. We will live fulfilled. So the warning of optical illusions is fun. Children need to know that. They'll go around and find them and create them with shadows. Is that dot larger than the other dot, or is it just an illusion towards the periphery? Likewise, on the right side there, is the center circle any different in size, or is it just an illusion? Now that can be right down to group activity. The strength of a circle, the strength of a group of people. Now if all of these little rotating groups, people, polarities, bodies, motion bodies that we are, come together and you have a central focal point, and you learn how to give to that central focal point at the same time, you're going to build a lot of potential. This is a lot of group activity that I participated in. We went from community to community and did metaphysical research also. We traced down all those stories about what people thought they could do and practiced. We practice changing our density into the astral plane. We practice sensing with our finger over there that your little toe has a corn on it, and I can feel it. We practice ESP, which we had an explanation for with Russell. And so we had a mechanics that we thought about. It wasn't just, I believe. We had some kind of mechanics that we could make sense out of it. So with children, I think one of the things that we've forgotten is that they need a lot of love and touching. They need to touch and hold and love some good companion. Bigger, stronger. They need to know a superior. They need to know there's something they can count on that knows more than they do. At least they're a little bit stronger than they are. But a good companion, like a pet or a dog, and a little responsibility of what it needs. It has a need system of its own, its biological rhythms, its metabolism. To learn to understand a companion is critical. Now, imagination in a child is their best gift. It hasn't been thwarted yet. It hasn't been told, I know, that's bad. For them to feel oneness with other creatures, let them spend time being a rabbit. If you ever find a rabbit trail through the Johnson grass and you can see where they go, let the kid follow that on hands and knees and go along and learn from their perspective, that critter's little perspective, what the world's like. Here, some little child has imagined that they're a fly, and he's gathered up all these things and made a little fly house for himself. He's got a ladybug for a friend over there. He has his artwork up of heroes that he admires, George Washington. But this type of imaginary, that's a construction on cardboard. It's a little crayon, little pillars of crayon. A little thumbtack on your bulletin board and a cork for a table. I just think it's darling. But that type of ingenuity, what can things be used for? If I was this big, what would I use? What would I need? Is a good practice for the imagination. I think for children, we should always provide every tool you can. We taught at home. We incorporated a school through the 4th grade with the state of New Mexico. And we were in wilderness conditions, and there were 6 families that had school-aged children, so we started our own school legally. And we had to fund it, of course, with all of our tools. But if you at home can provide any tool of exploration, give them a lens, a magnifying glass, give them a microscope. They can learn give them a telescope. From the macrocosm to the microcosm, they can see the spiral, they can see the vortex. This is one of the best times a child has. They're swinging on the free pendulum. Their mind tends to wander and float and have quiet time. I always encourage quiet, alone time. That's when everything's calm. We spent a lot of time since we were working in Vortex finding the spirals, showing the children how the spiral creates form, how it amalgamates, how it grows. Oops. And we had games like, well, who uses the vortex? Can you see it out there in Nation? Can you see the spider making its web as a vortex and it has a funnel hole down the middle? Do you see the ant down there? It's got a little V-shaped where the bug can tumble into that vortex, can't get out. It's sucked down in there. The sand covers it over. They have learned how to manipulate and use, and there are scientific experiments for school science programs that would demonstrate any of these facts. On YouTube today, there's a lot of demonstration for children. Like Sid the Science Kid on the PBS channels and some of the other things show living talk about this. We went through the human body first. We started exploring the symmetry of the human body and the star and the progressive that Leonardo da Vinci noticed, the progression of the spiral and how we were based and balanced with that mechanics. We were built that way. And we function pretty well if we don't block things. So we found bees, birds, worms, moles, butterflies. They all create vortices and move about and transport themselves in the air and in the water by just moving the water around, just stirring it around. Power. I'm making my power. I think I'll go over here. We could do that. We could copy nature. We don't have to carry us a little stove along to burn up a piece of coal to make our engine run. We could learn to make the mediums work for us and with us. Here's just an example of little science experiments that you can start doing with children. You can teach them at home. Play again. Were there questions unanswered in your science classes when you were young? And then when you studied Russell, you go, yes, now I have the answers. Go back and repeat some of the top experiments. A gyroscope, get a sun vane where you direct your attention on the black side of a vane and it starts to spinning, or the sun can do it. What is happening there? The child can see that the unseen is working, but you can explain it with the Russell concepts, and creating your own light and playing with light, dividing light with the pinhole, looking through the box at the solar eclipse, and explain what and why that is happening. Today, this is happening in the labs, the expensive labs. We are manipulating holograms, manipulating unseens, learning where they come into our regular, conventional life. And they're practicing. We've got the computer now that can talk and respond to our voice. They're practicing with emotional response, back and forth, digital emotional response. They want to put chips in us. I'd be careful about that because they definitely can influence emotional response, hormonal imbalance. We do that, not somebody putting a chip in me and making a robot out of me. That is so ridiculous. So don't let them do that under any guise. But that seems to be a hologram. It is. It's a hologram that's created from the interaction on the keyboard. If you're going to teach your children Russell, make a plan. Don't just jump in. It's too complicated. Start today. Make a plan. I think I'm going to straighten out this half-truth about magnets. We might spend a whole year with my 7th grader discovering magnets and what's really going on with magnets. How can we visualize it? How can we show it? How can we prove what Russell wanted us to know about magnets? Because if you don't make a plan, you'll get pulled off by the so many questions that you open up. And if you don't have an answer for that, you've got to tell them. We'll just look together. Let's go find out. Don't tell them a bunch of BS. Here I am in my wave chamber. I have learned to utilize different aspects, quadrants of my cube wave field. You can tap. They have different aspects of quality and power. You can tap them. You can change your very DNA. You can change your heredity. You can change your body by tapping the background geometry, that frequency. And it will echo in your body. Every cell has the capacity to be a perfect sphere. You can wave your arm around and cause movement way over there on the edge of Waynesboro. Whew! You can sense over there and feel, hey, moisture, water, tell me, is that storm really coming? Are we in the path of it? They've already proven that water has a memory. Water has an intelligence. Water can carry emotional impact. You can put 3 glasses of water up on a full moon and put different seeds of wheat, the same seeds of wheat, in there and curse one, love one, bless one, hold it up to the light and show it how beautiful it is. And the other one, just ignore in the dark corner. And see the difference in the growth in that glass of water. And it's been recorded. You can watch the whole eclipse come through from the growth of a grain of wheat over 17 cycles, and how the moon influences that, how our vortex from the outside influences all of the growth. Now, we're just talking about our own personal, but if we can control our own personal wave field, my field of influence, and I claim it, it's our birthright. We have the right to discover all of these things. Don't let anybody ever, and don't ever tell your child, you can't ask that. There's no question like a bad question. And unfortunately, at 3 years old, I taught my children to ask why about everything. They'll drive you nuts if you ever teach them to use that. But take the time. That is the critical time. That is when you're laying the platform for them to handle the world. The first 7 to 14 years are the basis for a child's philosophy of life. My mentor, our man that funded a lot of our work, was accepted by the Hopi reservation as a gourd person, they call him, a light person, because he went to find the elders of the tribe, and he had to go way out in the sheep field out in Colorado to find him. It took him half a day in a Jeep to go find this man. And he said, well, you've got to pass this test for me before I'm going to answer any of your questions. What is the most important time in a child's life? And somehow, JF knew to say the 9 months of development in the mother's body. That's when they take on the most patterning. That's when it's the easiest to pattern. The geniuses of the Japanese in the 70s and 80s, they purposely practiced bombarding the mother with intelligent information, a lot of mathematics, all this understanding in the subliminal. Well, it helped. The children do retain some of that. So anyway, the sooner you start, the better. And the more they can relate it. This is just something that happened recently to me. In the local area where I am, we're getting fiber optic cable put underground, and we're supposed to have fast internet, and whoopee, goody. And so the fiber optics engineer came in, and I've got Russell pictures up on my walls. If he comes into my house, he's going to see those big old nice, gorgeous pictures. And anybody that comes in and stands in front of them, I don't care who they are, layman, your plumber, your pastor, whoever comes in, if they stand under those pictures long enough, they're going to talk about them. They're going to ask you about them. It makes them want to know something. So anyway, we got in a good conversation about, well, how do fiber optics work? And I briefly told them that sometimes I see our vortex dimensions stacked in each other as cones. And if you twist these cones different ways, you get all this rainbow. And he said, exactly. That's what fiber optics does. We have a code. By changing these different circles, we get a whole different contact. And they just slide those little segments over just a little bit. And they get different combinations of color and sound and information and optic results. And they're using this. I think it's just fascinating. So anyway, it made me think about how the rainbow in the vortex, in the wave field, shows itself. You know, it changes, it transitions slowly, red, orange, yellow, and then it goes backwards, yellow, green, blue. This is how it could be doing that. Yeah. And it's always there. So anyway, it was a big awakening for me. Again, another way to show wave mechanics is here and working, and we are learning. Now, since our talk is to try to transform the morality of our children, don't ever forget the reciprocal thing. We get the two-way principle, and we're starting to wake up to that. We're starting to wake up to the fact that they're simultaneous and equal. Now, they may be exchanging preponderance in their domination, but they are always equal and balanced, and they're always exchanging and causing reaction in the other one. So, if you can teach a child early to give what that person wants. Give what they wished for that you agree with, that you think is a positive upliftment for their being as a gift. Give it with intent, that kind of intent. Or if you know someone that is really in distress, they're just so alone, and you put your hands on them and say, it's okay, we got it covered. Kindness. It's just a moment of kindness. And teach the child to be free with that, to be easy to compliment someone, to be easy to celebrate their success. That type of reversal in our schools. We need to put competition where it belongs and put unity, convergence, gathering together in a synthesis type of way where we are symbiotically, reciprocally benefiting from each other. That's where we live. That's where we make resonance. That's where we live forever. That's where our perfect species will carry forward, hopefully. Now, children they need to become aware of the environmental crisis our globe is going through, and they may think of new ways to tap energy. Green juice. Plants have electricity. You can demonstrate this. One of my favorite science projects that my daughter did and won honors was she measured the voltage in different trees, and she saw how much electricity we could get off the oak trees in our yard to see if we could run our TV. And she did that experiment with aloe vera plant and 2 electrodes on a little meter, but explained the process and how to connect them, how to unite them, how to amplify them, how to store it, how to make a storage capacitor with the green. So it won her NASA recognition at 16, She also took one of the Tesla turbines and introduced it to her high school science class. They built a little VTOL craft. They took it, they got to enter the Air Force North Carolina competition for craft, and they won, of course. But don't ever discourage the children from getting excited about the new ideas. they're the ones that can get away with introducing it to somebody. Hey, what about this idea? Because you'll meet up with a lot of stubborn, old, solid walls that seem to know how it's supposed to be, and they will hang on to that rigidity. But as we learn to create, this is some of the geometry that started forming in our auras as we were practicing this stretching yoga of our mind and body in a geometric form. People would start seeing these little flicks of light, and they were usually triangular. I said, aha, that's your thought hologram. What can you put in it? And you can see them. You can begin to see them. I think we are born with our psychic senses, our second senses, that can see slightly over the edge into the other dimensions, finer dimensions. But we're discouraged immediately. Well, part of our group's effort was to train these things too, to realize we're part spirit person and we're part biophysical person, but we're all electric. So there's some of the creation. Again, practicing from the reflective plane of the pineal gland and the group effort of your two vortices that come up and down that make this diamond. And you can squeeze this diamond, you can elongate this diamond, you can radiate, you can bless. That's something people have forgotten how to do. Bless your home. Bless your environment. Be thankful for it. Gratitude is a blessing. Acknowledge its beauty. Acknowledge its gift in your life. And it will double and come back to you. And it's just part of the joy of saying, I know we're alive, and I love it all. So teamwork, we learned as a community, always teamwork. It multiplies the efforts. Like 2 can become 8, the power of 8, just that easily in the universe. You can create a lot faster. And it's so free and so joyous. You don't have to worry about if somebody's against you or going to get you or you're going to lose or any of that. Just forget yourself and put yourself towards the objective. Over and over again. Put yourself towards the objective again. You will create what the team wants to create. Most of our training is done by people that carry around this big burden of ignorance and fear. Fear. Women of the world today have suffered from that a long time. And they're just now coming out from bullying, fear of being unequally treated. Again, in the home, most of us have these kind of tools in our kitchen and in our garage. And as a child is curious about them, teach them how to use them. Don't bar them from scissors. Of course, you don't want them running down the hill with them, but teach them the proper safety measures that go with each of those items. You won't have to hide them from them. And how to use them. They can begin at 5 years old to use a drill. My son used to take apart our dining room chairs, take all the screws out, and he was 4. Never stop imagination. Here's the little girl dreaming she's going to be an astronaut. And I like it up there, up high. I like it up high. Some children can feel the difference in low pressure atmosphere and high pressure atmosphere. You should take them in nature, if you have the opportunity, to the state parks that are in our country, the national parks that are in our country. Give them time in nature. I've always had the good fortune of living in the natural. Of course, I chose that on purpose because in the city you've got all these overlapping lenses and patterns and ideas going on, and I sense that. Well, no, I'm going to focus mine a little bit. It took 30 years to focus it to accomplish anything. And that seems like a long time. But some of the people that I studied with spent their lifetime, and thank goodness for them. They just recorded some of it. They did it. They utilized it. They left us witness, thank goodness. So we don't have to stumble around and do it all over again. Children are automatically drawn, some of their first artwork that they want to do are colors and rainbows. And some of their favorite things are, are bubbles. Have you ever noticed? Bubbles, bubbles. And you can see the reflection in a sphere. That's a perfect place to start talking about Russell's geometry, the sphere. Anyway, so they like to draw rainbows. They always are drawing rainbows. There's a reason that the color is beautiful to draw them into wondering. And you can make the rainbow. Use some of Russell's examples, that he has a lot of examples, real practical things, like look at the jet trail coming off of a jet engine and the circles that radiate out of it. There's the geometry working. Look at a spider web. He says that if you could spin that spider web fast enough, it would become a steel cutting blade. That's kind of hard to believe. But the point being that motion, going fast enough, creates this illusion of something solid. And spirograph, that's an excellent toy. Children can go around and make these sacred, the same sacred geometry site like in the pyramids, They see it, they see it, they see it, how it gets complicated more and more, how the crystalline patterns develop, how it could be mistaken for a solid piece of matter. It's just motion. They'll get it. I asked myself, if Walter and Leo entertained a kindergarten at some point, how would they teach them? What would they teach them? Polarization. Oh, that's a good half-truth and misunderstanding that science needs, and we've spent time in our workshops and demonstrating that. Take two cones, put them together, get your markers, go the same way from east to west in a circle. Go towards the poles in the same direction. Now take that cone and look at it from one end. You've got a counterclockwise circle. The same one, turn it around, you've got a clockwise circle. The illusion of polarization. Now psychologically and in society, what does that do? Polarization divides. In our thought process, in our agreement, in our attempt to accomplish an action, polarization too far, too extremely far, gets you out of balance. If you can bring your thoughts, your desires, your passions back and choose when you'd like to polarize a little bit more this way, a little bit more that way, you'll be safer. I have been a very passionate charging Ram person myself. Oh, look what I got. Don't you want to change the whole world? No, but that's not the way that it works best. You get classified as a nut, of course. So that's optical illusion. I'm going to run briefly through some of the pictures of the children's pages of the 18-dimension diagrams that are being put together. This is just to give them an introduction. Not enough has been written about Russell's concepts for the simple ones. Now, some of these are still being edited. But it starts the conversation. And they should understand in the wave where we are. What's going on around us? What's moving us? What's going on? What's the relationship between axial and rotation? These are just beginnings. See, you can start showing your children in real life, simply. You can make a lesson of a week or so on each one of these. And if you have a child, as you know, everybody learns a little bit different. And education is learning that some are tactical and they need to have hands-on experiments. And some can learn by reading and listening. But all of us have the opportunity to learn the truth. And Russell gave us a good start, and I thank you very much. So they're flashing the light. Do we have time for questions? Anybody got any questions?
Hi, hi Rhetta. Just over here. My children, as they're growing up, I found as they're writing in their early stages, that they write in mirrored form. So they write, say if they're writing their name, say my daughter's name is Emma, she won't write E-M-M-A, she writes A-M-M-E. And she sees it in reverse, and I was just wondering, is it because they're so young, they're seeing the other side of the mirror, the other plane? They're still, I don't know, they seem to see everything in reverse. And I just
All of your children do?
All three of them done.
Well, is that not the same as dyslexia, they call it?
No, it changes. It was only as they initially, it was just those first couple of years as they're starting to write.
Well, they relate that to one side of the brain or the other, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And
that can be stimulated, of course, physically. You can stimulate your children. Massage to babies is great, very needed. You can stimulate all of the organs of a young child. And with your intent and putting them in this type of vibrational frequency in their environment, in their chamber, you can heal. You can heal. You can heal from the finer dimension, a hologram, which we have had the opportunity to inhabit, which has powers for us. It's got buttons that we can push and use. But maybe they were still just unbalanced, you know, just coming into growth. The first 7 years is a observation of the type of child you have. What kind of character does it have? You know, is it a fire? Is it a round fire? Is it going to have to take charge and be seen all the time and teach? Or is it a passive, quiet one that will inspire philosophy, draw, paint, and without a single word inspire? But they have something to give, and they have everything. You don't know which part of that might develop best, so I think you should introduce the child to as many aspects of life as you can. Science, all the branches of science. Give them a chance at music. Let them choose their own instruments, many instruments. Definitely rhythm. Okay, here's a really good thing that happened. I lived with Indians for a while. And I knew a man who has 5 daughters, and he's a mathematician. He's a teacher. He's also a terrible drunk. He goes on a binge and totally loses it and crawls around in his belly on the streets of this little city. But he's a genius. And he has taught his 5 daughters, who now have, at an early age, scholarships to Stanford and places like this. He taught them geometry and math by the old steps of the Indian dance. They knew how they were touching the soil in a pattern that caused certain things to happen. And he developed his own mathematical teaching from his ancestry like that. I just found it was fascinating. Anyway, but different ways to learn, you know, we can learn in different ways. The best way I have found to reveal your own place in it is to go inward. Go to that silent place. Then you will remember you're of the heart, you know. Okay. Thank y'all again. Let's have a good break, huh?
Rhetta, don't leave yet. Wait a minute.
Oh, we got more?
Real quick.
Okay.
One quick comment on Ben's question. I had two brothers, two younger brothers, and an older sister. I was the only mirror writer.
The only
When I was
what?
mirror writer. I wrote Mitt Rednip, Tim Binder backwards, and lots of things. I think possibly it was previous lifetimes. I was figured many in the Orient, and the Orientals, like the Japanese, they go there. And I used to do all kinds of Japanese, Chinese script as a kid, and or I'm also have been dyslexic. And Rhetta, this was absolutely fabulous. And are your materials available for purchase or whatever? I want to get this and get it to various schools.
Thank you for that, Mr. Binder. I appreciate that. I think we need to develop as a university this gap, and we've got some excellent presentations put together by Matt and his ex-partner Slinger there. They give lessons, and then there's some for adults who are professionals or already scientists. They've already had to unlearn a whole bunch of things they couldn't agree with anyway. Well, they read Russell from Atomic Suicide, and they can relate to it. But there's certain areas of learning, if they don't get introduced to Russell, certain ages, if they don't get introduced to Russell's ideas early, they're going to have to battle through school and all of the false techniques. And if you tell them both at home halfway, like I did with my children, they have conflict trying to go out into the work world. You know this stuff, but it's not being applied out there on the usual corporations. What do you do? So we're sort of pioneers.
Well, this could even be it's useful for adults too, like you said, we're all children too.
Absolutely. It's hard to start trying to teach any one of those things. That look in the back of Universal 1, there's 100 laws. Just read one to your child and try to explain that for a week. Or figure out where to start. But a child's experiential learning is, they have it built in. We're supposed to see this and observe this. We're supposed to be co-creators and realize that we are. Most of us are just doing it subconsciously without control. Anyway, let's teach our children to realize, to observe what potential they're in, and to choose to step into a different octave. There's mind training to do this. There's self-help techniques, and you can choose the one that's nice for you. Where you can do that. You can just say, I'm not going to think about the terrible destruction that has occurred unless I'm going to take action. What I need to take action for is that destruction caused my stomach to be so nervous I couldn't even eat this for 24 hours. So there you can do something. Sure, you're helping yourself, but you're not alone.